TE Talks with Guides is a weekly podcast for lovers of history, travel, and all things Italian. Welcome back, everybody, to TE Talks, sponsored by Through Eternity Tours. I am your host, Rob Allen, and on TE Talks, we get to talk with some of the most fascinating people who make a living out of being wonderful storytellers. And I always like to add a note. If you enjoyed this podcast and our other episodes, please remember to write a review and give us 5 stars, because it is extremely helpful to get the word out and let other people know about who we are and what we do. So today, I'm very happy to present to all of you one of our top guides in the Campania region. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Campania region, it is most famously known for Pompeii, which is one of the great archaeological treasures of the world. The main city is Naples, and there are so many other things that one can see in Naples, including the Amalfi Coast. And we're going to learn a lot about that with Monica. Ciao, Monica.
Ciao, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a cold, rainy day in Rome in November, which is a good thing because it didn't rain at all this summer. How are you doing?
I'm fine, and so it's raining over here as well, and heavily, I should say.
Well, let me ask a couple of questions for you. First of all, you are an official guide of the Campania region. And how long have you been a guide? And more importantly, how long have you been working with Through Eternity Tours?
Well, actually, I have achieved my license to be a guide for the region Campania in July 1996.
Wow.
I have never stopped being a tour guide since then. And I believe, I don't think I'm wrong. I've actually been working with your organization for about 10 or more years.
Yes, I have to say to everybody, for the record, of the guides that we collaborate with in Naples, I think, Monica, that you are the one that we have had the longest working relationship with.
Yes, I think so.
Which is lovely. And of course, it shows how we have a great respect for each other. Now, for me, I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk with you today, because I have been doing with Dylan, who works in the office. And for those of you who don't know, Dylan and I have worked together for our YouTube channel with our Through Eternity TE destination videos that you can see. We have done 16 episodes of Rome. And now we finally are doing phase 2. We've done all the filming for it. And our very last stop, which some say could be the most important of the stops, because we want people to know where else we give tours, where else is Through Eternity providing services. And of course, it's in the Campania region. So we first, because our tours are a whirlwind, we kind of go in for a day in each place. We went a day in Naples, then we went to Pompeii, stayed the night in Sorrento, then we did Capri, then we did the Amalfi Coast, and came back. So that was all part of the trip. You most guides work a lot in Pompeii. Of all these regions in the Campania, all the areas in Campania, what areas do you like to tour in the most?
Well, obviously, you said it before. Pompeii is one of the most requested sites to guide small groups or large ones. Capri as well. Not actually, you haven't mentioned Amalfi, but there are places that are a little less known, and maybe they should need a boost.
Yeah.
Such as the Royal Palace of Caserta. I don't know if you have ever been there.
Yes, I did once.
You did once. Well, that is actually for your customers, for your guests. It's an incredibly huge place to visit. The people always remain astonished from the decorations inside, from the size of such a place. So it should be actually also, interesting, or you might try to suggest this other place to visit.
And you like to take people around in Caserta?
Yes, also because there is an incredible, beautiful park, plus the English garden, which are, into the structure. They are a prominent part of the structure. And it's really too bad that not enough people from other countries will have the opportunity to see these places.
Yeah, often I've heard that Caserta is referred to as the Versailles of Italy.
Yeah, it's indeed the truth.
Yes. So, no, I mean, Caserta itself, why don't you tell us a little bit about it? So who is connected to Caserta? Who built Caserta? Why is it so important?
Well, actually, Caserta was a very illuminated project of King Charles of Bourbon. He needed something that could be comparable to Versailles. He needed something that could actually become the new capital, where all of both the residences of the royal family and, of course, actually also the court and the army could be located. Since the royal palace of Napoli, you probably know, it is too close to the sea, it was just not well defendable from the possible arrival of the enemies by the sea. And so that is why he was just looking for something that would be in a location which would have been safer. And through this huge construction, he meant also to build a leisure garden that actually he did. So it was Charles of Bourbon that decided to do so. The construction was eventually taking, I would say, 96 years or so, because it was started in 1752, and we can consider the construction and the decoration inside more than the construction itself, completed in the year 1848 during for the visit of the Pope. So they were organizing an apartment for Pope Pius IX, which was hosted there. So a Pope also actually lived for maybe not more than a week, but for the Pope, they've organized a completely renowned apartment for him, even a little chapel just for his moment of praise. And so we might consider this is just the Versailles of Italy for sure, with 1,200 rooms, with a volumetry of 2 million cubic meter. Well, if that can count, yeah, it's enormous.
I think a lot of people don't realize, especially I think in Italy in general, that the idea in the aristocracy to be able to host and entertain people, and it was an opportunity when we didn't have photographs, images to share around. It was very important to host other important figures in society, other aristocrats. In fact, their aristocratic families in Rome, they were always obliged, even if they did not have a member that was a pope, that they had a room specifically for the pope, a throne that often was facing towards the wall unless the pope was there visiting, and he could sit in the throne. So I can imagine, even though it was the 19th century with Pius IX, who's a rather cantankerous pope in my opinion, but it was a big deal to have him come and visit Caserta. Just to give everybody an idea, when Monica refers to that, the Bourbons had an impressive palace that was in Piazza del Plebiscito, which is the main heart of Naples, if I'm not mistaken. It's
no, you're not mistaken. You're correct.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's enormous. And much older. Can you tell me a little bit about the Bourbons and let people know about them? Because very much the Bourbons defined Naples, and they defined many things, like the excavations of Pompeii, if I'm not mistaken, Caserta, many different things.
They were actually the family that, Charles was the son of the King of Spain, which married as a second wedding Elisabetta Farnese. So she had been very good in somehow organizing the things in a way that, through a number of legacies, Charles would become king of Napoli, king of the kingdom of Naples. And actually was a younger gentleman, very well educated, with an open mind, and he did all his he did all the possible things just to make Napoli and the kingdom something comparable to the capitals of other kingdoms at the time. We are talking of the moment when he actually got on the throne was the year 1734. So only Paris and London would be comparable or incredibly important cities in Europe. And he actually worked. It worked until he actually left Napoli in 1759. He did all the possible things. Do not forget that the famous San Carlo Opera House was built because of the wish of Charles in 1737, because he wanted just to have something great, huge, super wonderful. And so he built the opera house, which stands alongside the palace, the royal palace of Napoli. And not only, he built another royal palace, which is the one in Capodimonte, which is a very well and very famous art gallery now, which is including the part that it's only, I would say, a pinacoteca, so where they display paintings, and a part that is just the apartment which was used. And this has been also the last residence that a royal family was using until 1948. A small dependance in Capodimonte has been used by the last Savoy before being actually kicked out of the property. So, yes. So who was Charles? Well, Charles married actually a princess. She was Marie Amélie from Saxony. They had a good number of sons and daughters. We talk about 13 of them. Mm-hmm. But just because the brother of Charles of Bourbon, King of Napoli, which was on the throne of Spain, was unfortunately dying after he had suffered depression and so on, and left no heir to cover the throne in Spain, well, Charles was forced to abandon the kingdom of Napoli and get crowned in Spain. So that's what happened. And he had to leave the kingdom, of course, when they departed. The wife was just crying, incredible tears, because she was just abandoning part of the family, part of the sons and daughters. Anyway, a kingdom that she loved, and a population that was loving her. So she was extremely sad for the departure. So they went and they became King of Spain in the year 1759. Wow. So this was Charles. Of course, he died eventually. He died in Spain, after his wife left him, just because she was probably, too much. She was too much depressed, and the depression, somehow lowers your immune system. And so she died because she had affected by a tremendous pneumonia, and she died. She passed away. And he was super depressed and never got married once, and he lived the rest of his life in memory of his beloved wife. Of course, regretting for some reason the fact that he had to go away from Napoli and, of course, occupy the throne in Spain. Who was a king after him? Well, was this young boy called Ferdinando that was crowned the king of Napoli when he was only 10 years old. But he had somehow a lieutenant that would accompany him in just like the growth to become a king. But this is another history.
My goodness, yes. I would like to give everyone an idea of a couple of things. I apologize. I had to put a little cough drop in my mouth if I'm making noise, because I felt the cough coming on. Naples itself, just to give an idea for people, I very much love Naples. I think it is one of the most fascinating places in Italy. And as unique as Venice is for many different reasons, I believe also that Naples is unique. And I don't think that in Italy or in Europe, there is no other city quite like it. Yeah, and I find that people who live there very much love it. And I think that it has been a mystery to me why there are not more people going to see it. It's almost as if there's been this progression for tourists who come to Italy that they need to pass by Naples, stop by very quickly, and go quickly off to the Amalfi Coast. The Amalfi Coast is also extremely beautiful. Many things in Capri are, they want to go to Pompeii or Herculaneum or the Amalfi Coast, but that Naples itself is very much worthwhile to see. Excuse me. And as you pointed out, Monica, there is the fact that it was the largest city in Italy, in Europe, along with London and Paris. And Rome itself, which is now the capital of Italy, was a kind of backwater when it came to it, when you have the Industrial Revolution. And one can see that there is a lot of money that was to be had in the country. As you mentioned, you have Charles, and then you have Ferdinand working and living in there with the Bourbon family, where they're very, very powerful. In fact, Charles ended up becoming the King of Spain. He built one of the greatest opera houses of Italy. You just go to the center of Naples and you see Piazza Plebiscito. It is astounding, not only for the wealth and the power that was in the city, and then for the situation where the city is. You have the background, you have the volcano of Vesuvius. And it's some of the greatest moments of the sea and this major port and the beautiful palaces that go around, and this kind of wonderful contradiction of the city that you have great wealth and poverty also kind of right next to each other. And the people I find to be very expressive, very emotional, very demonstrative of what's going on with their lives. It's a really, and I find easygoing and very beautiful. Yes, sometimes it's not as clean as places, but I remember asking you about this when I saw you the last time. Why don't you share with us, what happened when Italy became a kingdom? Many people don't talk about this, or many people don't know. We don't study about this in America. We study about the Renaissance, or we study about ancient Rome. But we don't talk about when Italy became a unified kingdom, a country, and what that meant for Naples and the kingdom of Naples.
Well, I will be reading this historical fact from my point of view.
Yes.
That the unification of the country was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Was a disaster because, first of all, actually, we start from the minimal things. Actually, the treasure kept in the Banco di Napoli, the treasure of the taxes that all the Neapolitans had paid, and they were never removed from the King Francis II, the one that stood on the throne for roughly, 6 months before this process. He never took anything away from Napoli. He never just, when he left to arriving at Gaeta, where they stood actually quite a time before moving to Rome. Well, they never took any precious items. They left the things the way they were, because they said, we will return. Now, we don't want any spreading of our blood, of the blood of our citizens, of our, population. So we let calmly and gently enter in town Giuseppe Garibaldi. Mm-hmm. Giuseppe Garibaldi somehow actually would bring this kingdom in the end of a minor king, but it was actually somehow, it was endorsed by someone more powerful than the Savoy themselves, and more powerful than the Bourbons themselves. Behind the unification of the country, there was actually, I would say, more political interest and economical interest from another nation that I don't want just to involve in this. Mm-hmm. But in any case, the funds for the unification of the country given to Victor Emmanuel II were from another country which had all the interest to keep this part of Italy low, either in economy or in military power. So the process for the unification was already offered to someone else before Victor Emmanuel II. Well, it was offered to Ferdinand II, the grandson of Charles, which actually said, no, I'm not interested in unifying the country under one single crown because I have the sea, which is just all the way around me. So he meant the kingdom. He meant his territory.
Sure.
And above me, there is God, because, of course, the borderline on the northern side of the kingdom of Napoli was just the Pope state. And so he said that there is just a God over my head. And he had no wishes to expand his power, but someone else accepted the offer. And actually this offer was just given to this, was made to the Victor Emmanuel II, just because the many small dukedom or principates in which the country of Italy was divided, they were feeling themselves weak, that any other, nation from abroad, from outside, could actually attack them. Remember, of course, the Milano. Remember, of course, of the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, which was also feeling pretty much weak and so on. So all of the minors were asking for such a unification. And of course, this foreign nation took advantage of, the moment. And it was actually arriving like something that Victor Emmanuel II would not expect, but he accepted right away because it was coming from a small kingdom of Piemonte. Well,
Sure.
who knows Piemonte? Well, technically. And he actually said, okay, we are just pretty much like a country workers in here. Let's expand. Let's see what's happening. But Victor Emmanuel II would not have been able to do such a mission and such a such a process without the help of someone else that I cannot mention, because otherwise we will actually have diplomatic issues now.
Okay.
All right. And so technically, what was it? Well, there were a number of records. The Kingdom of Two Sicilies, if we want to call it this way, also not only Kingdom of Napoli, was having the first railway built, was having the first city light service started, was having a number of services that would be extremely modern. There was the project of Ferdinandopoli, which was in the province of Caserta, was a modern town where everyone had to be well educated. They had just to attend a school, mandatory boys and girls, and they had to be ensured that somehow funds to get married and to be, independent. Yes, there are actually also other people that see in a different way, but being very much in touch and being very much into the history of my places, well, I know the things a little deeper than someone that would know them superficially. And our kingdom was actually the one that was, from the point of view of the industries, the most actually updated. In Sicily, there were lots of weaving machines. They were, after the unification, just totally removed from Sicily and brought to the area of Bergamo, and which is now where we're having actually the textile industry is settled. So what else? Maybe important. Well, it's still there. The dry dock, the shipyard in Castellammare. Thank the Lord, it's still there, because maybe the position, it is just important. But there were lots of industries that were removed from Napoli or the kingdom or any other territory around the kingdom, just to be settled everywhere else in the north of Italy. If it would not have been for this enormous treasures of 4 million ducats that Giuseppe Garibaldi took from the safes in the Banco di Napoli, at that time it was still called the Banco di Napoli, it was brought to Victor Emmanuel II. Actually, not much of the industries that we have now in the north would have been started. Where, how, with which money. And so actually, for us, this has been really, as I said at the beginning, that was a disaster. And of course, when many of the Neapolitans were going to vote, the male Neapolitans, because in 1860 there was a plebiscito, there was a fake plebiscito. Actually, the Neapolitans that went into the exit poll, into the cabin to vote, were threatened with life if they would not have voted to say yes to the annexion of the Kingdom of Naples to the kingdom of the Savoy. So that was just it's an horrible page in our past.
Who was threatening these people when they were going to vote?
Well, at the time, actually, the people in the I would say in gangs, bands, criminal gangs and bands, they were given a uniform, becoming policemen. So there is a movie that actually it's saying it very well. It's a movie of the 50s, 60s. Can't remember the name. I will try, and then I will look for it, and then I will give it to you. Sure. Which is explaining it perfectly, beautifully, clearly how it was going on. So I would say the gangs, like the gangs of New York, the gangs of Napoli, were actually taking advantage of such a process to obtain important rules. And they were, of course, actually maintaining the status quo. And so they were forcing the male Neapolitans to vote for the yes. That's why it was called the plebiscite. That was just like because it was a fake it. They were actually forcing them to vote for yes, I want to be annexed, yes, this, and yes, that. No, really not. The Chronicle of the time are actually telling that they were threatened of being killed if they would not express a yes to the votation for the annexion.
They always say these things are done democratically, but in reality, they
are not really. Not even now, actually, we are in a democracy.
Exactly. No. I always try to tell people, as guides, because we have a deep interest and relation with history. We know history a lot, and we know that, because the news today tends to say, oh, these things have never happened before, but we know very well
they have.
They happen again and again and again. It's funny, I don't think enough people really know about this history, because even if the Neapolitans did that much, the way you've clearly pointed out, because from what I'm getting from this is that you have an amazing city that is thriving, that is a place of technology, it is a place of art, it is a place of exchange of ideas, that you have a good ruler who is not out for great ambition. And that when they agreed to do this, when people were forced to vote for this, that basically the other powers that be picked Napoli clean. They stole the money. In fact, it's like, I'm surprised that there's a big statue of Garibaldi in front of the main train station, that it hasn't been destroyed by the Neapolitans.
Well, I don't know why, but there is people, there are some associations that are just trying to ask for the removal and maybe to settle down actually a statue of Ferdinand II or one of our kings. That it's absolutely improper to have the statue there, even if actually with Giuseppe Garibaldi himself actually recognized the big mistake that he did, and he was asking for forgiveness sometime after, but it was not sufficient actually.
So it basically brought the wealth to the north that is still present today. Because in the north, we have huge industries. You have very, very wealthy cities like Milan, Turin. They almost kind of put their noses down to anything below Florence, including Rome. They don't think of Rome as the center. Rome thinks of it as the center of the world. That's how the Romans are.
That's what Rome believes, yes.
Yes, but they think of everybody as the South, and that the South is a place of, disorganization, corruption, things not working. But, I always try to urge for people that they should go to Naples, that they should go to Caserta, that they should see these things. Is that also then why you would think, because I think people who are from the United States have a very deep interest and connection to the south of Italy, because most of the people who emigrated from Italy to the United States in the 1800s and the early 1900s were from...
Well, across 18 and 19 for the economical depression that actually has been caused by the preparation of the south of Italy.
Yes.
So, yes, the most of the people immigrating in the United States are coming from the south. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
I have to tell you, my first adventure coming to Naples was with a friend of mine. Her name is Sally Webb, and she was writing an article for Condé Nast Travel in Australia in the year 2000, I think. And she said, come with me on this trip. And I did. And she took me, she was reading, because she's Australian, but she was reading a book from an Australian author named Peter Robb, and it was called The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. And she took me through Spacca Napoli, which I'm going to talk about in another podcast with Andrea Fiorillo, I think. But it was so great because we went into a bar, which they did the Caffè Napolitano. And the author describes about a barista who has one eye. He's bald and has one eye, and he prepares the coffee the way the Neapolitans prepare the coffee. The coffee is in this, the coffee cups are always in a tray of boiling water. And, they pour the scalding hot coffee, and you're not really, then you put the sugar in, it kind of melts, it caramelizes with the coffee. And what was really lovely is that I just went with this trip to Dylan. I took him to the same bar, and the same barista's there. It just kind of comes to life. I always feel like Naples is in its own time period. It's like you almost go into a time machine, a place which is just fascinating to me, where the food is terrific. I mean, the bread is better than bread in so many other regions, the desserts, the pastas, the seafood. I mean, it's just on so many multiple levels. Do you love Naples yourself? I mean, do you live in Naples, or what part of Campania do you live in?
I live in Napoli, yes, indeed. And I like to call it Napoli because Naples is in Florida, actually.
There we go. Certo.
Yeah.
Napoli.
Yes.
Benissimo.
I do live in Napoli, and I do love Napoli. So, and I live where? Actually, I live not far away from the famous stadium where the myth of the football has played, Diego Armando Maradona. So I'm pretty much in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say northwestern part of the town. I'm not in the city center.
Okay, but you know quite well about it.
Yeah.
I was actually meeting with another guide in Positano. Her name is Lucy, she goes by.
Yeah, Lucia. Yes, I know her.
She's lovely. And I'm going to get her on the podcast. But she talked about how, even though I'm Positano, and I said, well, why do you want to necessarily live in Naples? And she explained that Positano is very beautiful and very clean and organized, but she just prefers Napoli, yes, over Positano herself. That, it's just like these people who understand Napoli really have a true, they get it. They get what it's about. And I feel like a lot of people need to try to do that, need to try to experiment it. And you know what I always loved about the Neapolitans, Napolitani, was the fact is that, I'm so living in Rome, and I love Rome very much. Rome has been very good to me. But the Romans are, for me, like the New Yorkers, and they're kind of rude and abrupt, brusque, and Neapolitans are, because I'm right. That's why you're laughing.
That's why I'm laughing. Yeah.
It's right. True. The Neapolitans. Yes, it is. The Napolitani,
we are actually more warm. We are warmer people.
You are warmer people.
We're not actually snobbish or nose up. Yeah. We are very much keeping our feet under the ground. And if we can help anybody in the middle of the road, we will do that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Very accogliente. People are very warm greeting, and you don't really, I've never had a kind of negative experience from the barista or from whoever.
No.
I just, that's so many reasons I really enjoy it. It's so funny because I had such a good time with my first trip. I took my parents to Naples, and my parents, they have traveled all over the world. They've traveled very high lugs because my dad works in the travel industry, and they both desperately fell in love with Naples. And we've gone a few times to Naples because they really love the city, Napoli as well. I'm just saying Naples because in English, so forgive me. I'll try to remember to say Napoli. A couple of other questions, though. I just want people to know something, because I remember in Caserta, when I went to Caserta, I think I have to go to Caserta with you. You mentioned something that was the English gardens. Yeah. And I've thought about this. It's interesting. I think the more and more I've talked to you, and I've talked to Daniela in Veneto, talking about the villas in Veneto, all over, and in Capri, you have the English living there on the island. From the Grand Tour, you have a lot of these concepts of English gardens that are coming that really mix in with the Italian gardens. And they have these beautiful spaces that are created from 18th century, 19th century English influence. What do you think about that? Because you said the English gardens of Caserta.
The English garden, whilst the park of Caserta is more geometrical. Mm-hmm. This is the English garden is, I would say, you are just like walking into a wild wood, organized, of course, with lots of important plants. Well, the very first cannot remember the name of the plant, was just imported from Japan for the decoration of this garden. And there are actually some fake remains, some fake archaeological remains that are included. There is beautiful. It's called the Bath of Venus, and it's also cynical and really actually in a fairy. It's looking like a fairy location.
Is this is it Glicine? Are you talking about? Or
no, I am talking about. Nope. Wait.
Azalea?
No.
Rhododendron?
No.
You know a lot of Asian.
No,
flowers.
I can't remember the name either in English or Italian, actually. So I need to just dig in my cache memory for the name for that.
Nope.
Va bene, that's all right. Anyhow, there is just the little there is just the Nymphias lake. There are lots of ducks. It's beautiful, and it's a beautiful place. It's very, I would say, romantic. It's a romantic garden which has got little locations, but very, very cute. And that would be something that our people, your people, would appreciate a lot to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember distinctly going into Caserta, and the view of the gardens is just, it permeates wherever you go. And I remember that there's like a mountain behind Caserta. The gardens go in, and there's this beautiful long path that goes right up the mountain. And it's
3 kilometers long. It is just a number of fountains with some little falls, and a group of sculptures that also have been planned by Luigi Manvitelli, because everything could have been done because there was Luigi Manvitelli, which was the engineer projecting everything. Without him, none of the things that we are still having over there would be possible.
Absolutely.
Camellia, the first camellia from Japan.
There we go. Camellia plants, beautiful.
The first camellia arriving in Europe was brought over there and planted for the decoration of the gardens and so on. And they had actually this British botanologist that took care of all of it. And then when he left to go and work in Sicily, he left the two sons to continue to work at the decoration of the garden. Because in those days, actually across the 17 and 1800, the Kingdom of Napoli was allied with England, much allied. Historically saying, actually, it would be thanks to the British ambassador to the court of Napoli. There was just representing the Kingdom of England, that there was the beginning of the massive tourism in Sorrento, for instance, because he said and he wrote and he described Sorrento as a nice place to stay. And so many Britishers were running to Sorrento with a vision of enjoying pleasant time in a beautiful climate, in a beautiful weather, in a beautiful location. And so that's when actually the international tourism started in Sorrento. So it's a thank to him.
My goodness. These are just lovely tastes for people. Now, I do want to go to one more thing, because we talk about how beautiful everything is. Another thing that gave me such a big impression when I went to Caserta is that there are many portraits of the Bourbon family. Now, I'm a shallow person, because I took comfort in the fact is that they had so much wealth, but because there was so much inbreeding, it seemed that they were some of the ugliest aristocrats that I've ever seen in portraits.
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was so ugly.
They were ugly. Indeed, they were ugly. They had the big noses. And
long faces.
Yes, long faces, elongated faces, extremely elongated. they resembled some horses sometimes. Yes, you're right. Exactly.
They had big jowls, and it's hard to differentiate between a man and a woman. They had very interchangeable. The women looked very masculine to me.
And there was one queen that was particularly ugly, and it was Marie Carolina. Carolina, she was just the daughter of the daughter of the empress from Austria, and Mary Teresa, the big empress. She actually worked a lot and always find life just to put all of their daughters on all of the kingdoms in Europe. And so she has been able just to have Carolina. Probably she was 14 or 15 years old when she married actually Ferdinando, and they had 17 boys and girls. And actually God. Carolina, yes, but there are reasons behind this marriage, behind this many kids. And so actually she was the ugliest. She was the ugliest, among them. Yes, indeed. Now, the reason why they had so many kids is just because in the marriage agreement, she would obtain the right of speech in the council state if she was going to ensure an heir, so giving the king a boy. But at the beginning, only princesses came. And so she wanted to get pregnant and to just give a boy to the king. And then she had actually Francis the first of the Bourbon. And then actually she started to interfere with the administration of the kingdom, in the decisions taken by his husband. And the minister could not, the ministers of the kingdom, they were really not tolerating all the intervents of such a queen. And then was actually the husband, Ferdinand, that tried to keep her pregnant all the time, to keep her away from the councils.
Oh my! Yes. Gosh! Okay.
That was his policy, and so technically that's why they had 17 of them. But then you have to consider also the high infant mortality of those times.
Yeah.
And so not all of them, if they were born, were actually becoming adult. This is a fact.
Sure.
That is it. So that's why they had 17 of them. But among the queens that have used the royal palace of Caserta, actually, Carolina is the ugliest and probably the most demanding one as well.
Oh my goodness!
It's a thank to her anyway. Sorry if I'm interrupting you, but it's a thank to her that we are having the famous library in the royal palace of Caserta. Remember?
Yes.
The library, actually, it is just thanks to her. She wanted to have it. So she had actually an education that was for sure on a level superior than her husband. The husband was just barely educated. He didn't want to listen to this, his professors and teachers.
Oh my goodness. So she was married. She was terribly ugly.
She's not buried in here. She's buried in the chapel of the Capucines in Vienna.
Okay. No, but I was saying she was married. She was married to somebody stupid. She was ugly. But what else could she do but be demanding? Good for her.
No, well, actually, he wasn't stupid. He was really, I would say, not too much keen of being king.
Ah, okay.
He actually always, demanded other people. Actually, he was saying, okay, you can do this, for me, you can do that for me. And actually, he was not working as an administrator personally because he had lost technically a sample. He had lost a father when he was 8 years old. If he would not have a good sample, then he would not become a good king. That was the fact.
My goodness. Well, it seems that I need to read more about the Bourbon.
Yes, you do. There are lots of books. There are monographies about the kings of Napoli, one per every king. There will be an opening world for you.
Absolutely. Well, Monica, for me, I take great pleasure in having conversations with you. You seem to have a joy of life and a joy of where you're from that I find infectious. And thank you so much for your time and having this conversation with me about Caserta and about Naples and the Bourbon family.
You're welcome. Thanks to you. I hope to see you soon.
We will see each other soon. And I'm sure I'm going to be reaching out to you again to have other conversations, other podcasts. And this is such a great opening because There are many other podcasts that we will be doing, guys. We're going to be talking about Pompeii. We'll be talking about Spacca Napoli. We'll be talking about the Amalfi Coast, the island of Capri, and the Campi di Flegrei, which I think is something that no one ever goes to, but everyone else, I haven't gone yet.
That is
Everyone
also a very nice place to go around, but that doesn't not actually, it's not sufficient 2 or 3 or 4 hours. You need a good couple days. So
yeah, that's what I have to do. I have it. My own plan is to go there on a trip by myself. There doing the Campi di Flegrei. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you soon, Monica. Ciao so much. Grazie.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao, ciao. Thank you for listening to our TE Talks with Guides. We have a new episode every Wednesday. Please subscribe to get an alert when each podcast comes out. Rate us and tell people how you enjoyed it and share it on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Most importantly, if you enjoyed it, send us a feedback about the show. Also, if you are curious about what some of these people and places we talked about look like, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch the video on this podcast where we have inserted special images for you to further enjoy the story.